having a life scholarship and being able to afford to go to college made me feel inspired to go.
When I got a life scholarship, it was such a relief.
I knew that I wanted to have an impact. Having a life scholarship through the SC Education Lottery was huge. It gave me the opportunity to make that impact right here at home.
The South Carolina Education Lottery. A better you, a better us, a better South Carolina. Visit sceducationlottery.com/betteryou.
Ready to make a real impact every day? Join the Active Day Home Care team and help clients maintain their independence in the comfort of their own homes. Make a difference in someone's life as you provide essential daily assistance and protect their health and happiness. Earn up to $20 an hour and enjoy additional perks like optional daily pay, 401k, paid time off, ongoing educational training, and more. Join a team that values care, compassion, and your professional growth. Visit activeday.com to apply.
Okay, let's dive in. We have a stack of source material here, articles, research notes, charting a really dramatic and frankly quite dangerous shift.
A major shift, yeah. For decades, you had this tension between Iran and Israel, but it mostly played out as a shadow war.
Right, covert stuff. But as of June 13, 2025, which is the time frame these sources cover, that's escalated. We're talking direct military confrontation now.
And it's pushed the whole region towards what some of this material calls a dangerous precipice. It's pretty serious.
It really is. So our mission today is to unpack these sources together. We want to help you understand exactly how we got to this point, according to the material.
Yeah, what the situation looks like on the ground based on these reports and what the core issues really are.
We're going to distill the key facts, the insights, straight from the sources we have here, presenting it all impartially. The goal is for you to be well-informed on this, well, absolutely critical topic.
And what these sources really hammer home is the depth of the animosity here. It's not new.
Definitely not. Deep roots, right? Geopolitical, ideological.
Exactly. You've got Israel viewing Iran's nuclear program as basically an existential threat. They fear potential weapons, even though Iran insists it's purely peaceful.
And then on the other side, Iran fundamentally rejects Israel's right to exist. They actively back groups like Hamas, Hezbollah.
And they're pushing for more influence across the region, no question.
So for years, like you said, it was shadows. Cyber attacks.
Assassinations of scientists, sabotage, think Nekans, Fordo, that kind of thing.
Plus proxy fights everywhere. Syria, Lebanon, Yemen, Iraq. And Israeli airstrikes in Syria were pretty regular, hitting Iranian targets, Hezbollah.
Yeah, that was the backdrop. Figures like Esmail Kanani from the IRGC Quds Force, Ali Shamkhani, they're mentioned in the sources as key on Iran's side.
And for Israel, obviously Prime Minister Netanyahu, and operations often attributed to Mossad. That was the, let's say, tense but established pattern.
Volatile, but mostly indirect, until it wasn't.
So if that was the long-standing dynamic, what do the sources point to as the moment things really broke? The moment those shadow war rules just shattered?
The turning point, and it's really clear in this material, was April 2024. Israel hit what was described as an Iranian diplomatic building in Damascus, Syria.
An airstrike. And the key thing was it killed several senior Iranian military commanders, big names, including Brigadier General Mohammad Reza Zahedi of the IRGC.
A major figure. Iran, understandably, vowed retaliation, but their response, as reported, was, well, unprecedented.
A direct missile and drone attack launched from Iranian territory at Israel. That was April 13th, 2024.
Unprecedented is exactly the word everyone used. Hundreds of drones, cruise missiles, ballistic missiles, a massive barrage.
But the sources also detail Israel's defenses. Iron Dome, help from the U.S., UK, France, Jordan.
Right. They intercepted the vast majority. The reports we have noted pretty limited actual damage and fatalities in Israel from that specific attack.
Okay, so the physical damage was contained maybe, but the strategic impact...
Absolutely enormous. What the key takeaways from this material is that this direct attack state on state from Iranian soil, it just broke the mold. It crossed a red line that hadn't really been crossed before in this way.
These unspoken rules about avoiding direct attacks on home territory, keeping it to proxies or covert stuff, that was gone.
Completely changed the game.
So Israel then vows a significant response. This is despite a lot of international calls for restraint, particularly from the U.S., right?
Yeah, a lot of pressure to hold back. But Israel did retaliate April 19th, 2024. Some Israeli media, according to the sources, called it Operation Rising Lion.
And how did that look? What did the sources say about the nature of that strike?
It was characterized as limited, targeted, focused primarily near Isfahan in Iran.
Isfahan, that's significant because it houses military bases, but also key nuclear facilities, right? Including Natan's.
Exactly. And U.S. officials later confirmed, backing up reports from places like the New York Times, that the specific target was an Iranian air defense radar system, crucially, near the Natan's facility.
Targeting air defense near a nuclear site. What's the message there, according to the sources?
It seems like it was about sending a clear signal. Look, we can reach sensitive areas even near your nuclear program with precision, but it was designed, perhaps, to avoid triggering an all-out war at that specific moment.
So a calibrated response, though Iran initially tried to downplay it. Small drones, that sort of thing.
Yeah, Tehran's initial line was dismissive, but later analysis and reports like the one from the NYT mentioning Iran firing anti-aircraft missiles near Isfahan suggested it was probably a more sophisticated hit than Iran first let on.
Okay, but here's the grim part, the sources detail. That tit for tat in April 2024, it didn't actually de-escalate things.
Not at all. The core issues didn't go away, and those red lines, once crossed, they seem to stay crossed.
So fast forward to June 2025. What's the picture then, according to this material?
By June 13th, the date reflected here, it had escalated into, well, full-blown conflict, open confrontation.
How does that manifest?
Repeated exchanges, ballistic missiles, drones, flying both ways. Iran's military figures like IRGC Commander General Hossein Salami, Chief of Staff Major General Mohammad Bagheri are mentioned openly targeting major Israeli cities. Tel Aviv, Jerusalem.
In Israel's defenses, Iron Dome, Arrow systems, they're still working, intercepting a lot.
They are, but reports from outlets like Haaretz, Your Net News confirm some are getting through, causing damage, yes, but also casualties. In Tel Aviv, for example.
That's a terrible development.
Yeah.
A direct human cost in major cities, unlike the limited impact back in April.
Absolutely. And Israel's targeting, that's escalated dramatically too. The sources say Israel is now openly hitting Iranian military installations, and this is critical elements of Iran's nuclear program.
Not just sabotage anymore.
No. Widespread reports mention a major strike specifically on the Natanz nuclear facility itself and other enrichment sites. People like Faridun Abbasi are quoted in some sources talking about the impacts. This is a huge escalation from the shadow war era.
And beyond the military and strategic targets, the human cost generally.
It's rising. Al Jazeera, Reuters, they report increasing casualties, including civilians, on both sides. That bombing in Tel Aviv caused real alarm, leading to calls, mentioned in the sources, for maybe even more advanced defense systems like TAD.
Meanwhile, the rhetoric from leaders still dialed up to 11.
Oh, absolutely. On Iran's side, you have Supreme Leader Khamenei and President Pezeshkian. He took office in August 24, quoted with warnings of crushing responses, even talk of eradicating the Zionist entity.
And in Israel, Netanyahu.
Still a very firm stance, doing whatever is necessary, including preemptive strikes. The sources also mention he might be facing some pressure from inside his own war cabinet, figures like Sachi Hanegbi pushing for decisive action.
And this direct fight isn't happening in a vacuum. What about the rest of the region?
It's definitely destabilizing things further. Iran's allies and proxies, Hezbollah in Lebanon, militias in Iraq, Yemen, they've significantly increased activity against Israel and also U.S. interests.
Which fuels those fears of a wider war.
Yeah.
The term World War III even pops up in some discourse cited here.
Exactly. U.S. CENTCOM is heavily engaged, trying to protect U.S. interests and allies with air defense, naval forces, but stressing very clearly they don't want to be drawn into a direct war with Iran.
And even within the U.S., there are differing views reflected in the sources.
Yes, you see some contrast. Look, Senator John Fetterman's strong support for Israel's actions versus Senator Jack Reed urging more caution about how involved the U.S. gets.
Okay, let's circle back to the nuclear issue. With Israel striking near and now reportedly on nuclear facilities, what are the specific concerns highlighted?
This is maybe the most alarming part. Fears about Iran's nuclear program have intensified massively during this conflict, according to these reports.
How so?
The IAEA, the UN's nuclear watchdog, is expressing alarm. They're citing Iran ramping up uranium enrichment and restricting inspections. That's mentioned clearly in the material.
And the implication of that increased activity.
Well, the fear, explicitly discussed in these sources, is that Iran could be getting closer to actually developing nuclear weapons, or at least reaching a breakout capability.
Which would just completely change the strategic landscape.
Fundamentally, it adds a terrifying new dimension to an already dangerous conflict.
So let's just pull back and recap the journey these sources map out.
Yeah.
We went from this long-term shadow war, Yeah, indirect, covert.
To that clear turning point in April 2024, direct state-on-state attacks for the first time.
And by June 13, 2025, that had spiraled into open conflict.
Yeah.
Ongoing missile strikes on cities, hitting strategic sites, including nuclear facilities.
Rising casualties, leadership rhetoric, it's incredibly hostile, and this ripple effect destabilizing the entire region, pulling in proxies.
The stakes, as these sources make incredibly clear, are just immense. Potential catastrophe for global energy, international security, and, of course, human lives.
Understanding the specifics, the timeline laid out here, it's crucial for grasping just how serious things are right now.
It really is. This deep dive shows a trajectory that's deeply concerning.
So here's maybe something to leave you thinking about, based on this material. With Israel openly targeting Iranian nuclear sites, and Iran pushing ahead with enrichment and missiles, does this conflict mean the old red lines are just gone for good?
And what does that imply for the future, for regional stability, long after the immediate fighting stops? That's a heavy question these sources force us to confront.
Having a life scholarship and being able to afford to go to college made me feel inspired to go.
When I got a life scholarship, it was such a relief.
I knew that I wanted to have an impact. Having a life scholarship through the SC Education Lottery was huge. It gave me the opportunity to make that impact right here at home.
The South Carolina Education Lottery. A better you, a better us, a better South Carolina. Visit sceducationlottery.com/betteryou.